Quagmire. A difficult situation. We'd all like to avoid the kind of military quagmire characterized by the Vietnam War. Quaint. Charmingly old-fashioned. Hilda was delighted by the quaint bonnets she saw in Amish country. Quandary. A perplexed, unresolvable state. Carlos found himself in a quandary. Should he choose mint chocolate chip or cookie dough? Quell. To control or diffuse a potentially explosive situation. The skilled leader deftly quelled the rebellion. Querulous. Whiny, complaining. If deprived of his pacifier, young Brendan becomes querulous. Quixotic. Idealistic, impractical. Edward entertained a quixotic desire to fall in love at first sight in a laundromat. Quotidian. Daily. Because quotidian routines include drinking 2 cups of coffee in the morning. Rail. To scold, protest. The professor railed against the injustice of the college's tenure policy. Rancid. Having a terrible taste or smell. Rob was double-dog dared to eat the rancid egg salad sandwich. Rancor. Deep, bitter resentment. When Eileen challenged me to a fight, I could see the rancor in her eyes. Rapport. Mutual understanding and harmony. When Margaret met her paramour, they felt an instant rapport. Rash. Hasty, incautious. It's best to think things over calmly and thoroughly, rather than make rash decisions. Raucous. Loud, boisterous. Sarah's neighbors called the cops when her house party got too raucous. Raise. To demolish, level. The old tenement house was razed to make room for the large chain store. Rebuke. To scold, criticize. When the cops showed up at Sarah's party, they rebuked her for disturbing the peace. Recalcitrant. Defiant, unapologetic. Even when scolded, the recalcitrant young girl simply stomped her foot and refused to finish her lima beans. Recapitulate. To sum up, repeat. Before the final exam, the teacher recapitulated the semester's material. Reciprocate. To give in return. When Steve gave Samantha a sweater for Christmas, she reciprocated by giving him a kiss. Reclusive. Solitary, shunning society. Reclusive authors such as J.D. Salinger do not relish media attention and sometimes even enjoy holing up in remote cabins in the woods. Reconcile. To return to harmony. The feuding neighbors finally reconciled when one brought the other a delicious tuna noodle casserole. To make consistent with existing ideas. Alu had to reconcile his skepticism about the existence of aliens with the fact that he was looking at a flying saucer. Rectitude. Uprightness, extreme morality. The priest's rectitude gave him the moral authority to counsel his parishioners. Redoubtable. Formidable. The fortress looked redoubtable set against a stormy sky. Commanding respect. The audience greeted the redoubtable speaker with a standing ovation. Refract. To distort, change. The light was refracted as it passed through the prism. Refurbish. To restore, clean up. The dingy old chair, after being refurbished, commanded the handsome price of $200. Refute. To prove wrong. Maria refuted the president's argument as she yelled and gesticulated at the TV. Regurgitate. To vomit. Feeling sick, Chuck regurgitated his dinner. To throw back exactly. Margaret rushed through the test, regurgitating all of the facts she'd memorized an hour earlier. Relegate. To assign to the proper place. At the astrology conference, Simon was relegated to the Scorpio room. To assign to an inferior place. After spilling a drink on a customer's shirt, the waiter found himself relegated to the least lucrative shift. Relish. To enjoy. Pete always relished his bedtime snack. Remedial. Intended to repair gaps in students' basic knowledge. After his teacher discovered he couldn't read, Alex was forced to enroll in remedial English. Remiss. Negligent, failing to take care. The burglar gained entrance because the security guard, remiss in his duties, forgot to lock the door. Renovate. Restore, return to original state. The renovated antique candelabra looked as good as new. To enlarge and make prettier, especially a house. After getting renovated, the house was twice as big and much more attractive. Renown. Honor, acclaim. The young writer earned international renown by winning the Pulitzer Prize. Renunciation. To reject. Fiona's renunciation of red meat resulted in weight loss, but confused those people who thought she'd been a vegetarian for years. Repentant. Penitent, sorry. The repentant Dennis apologized profusely for breaking his mother's vase. Replete. Full, abundant. The unedited version was replete with naughty words. Repose. To rest, lie down. The cat, after eating an entire can of tuna fish, reposed in the sun and took a long nap. Reprehensible. Deserving rebuke. Jean's cruel and reprehensible attempt to dump her boyfriend on his birthday led to tears and recriminations. Reprieve. A temporary delay of punishment. Because the governor woke up in a particularly good mood, he granted hundreds of reprieves to prisoners. Reproach. To scold, disapprove. Brian reproached the customer for failing to rewind the video he had rented. Reprobate. Evil, unprincipled. The reprobate criminal sat sneering in the cell. Reprove. To scold, rebuke. Laura reproved her son for sticking each and every one of his fingers into the strawberry pie. Repudiate. To reject, refuse to accept. Kwame made a strong case for an extension of his curfew, but his mother repudiated it with a few biting words. Repulse. To disgust. Antisocial Annie tried to repulse people by neglecting to brush her teeth. To push back. With a deft movement of her wrist and a punch to the stomach, Lacey repulsed Jack's attempt to kiss her. Reputable. Of good reputation. After the most reputable critic in the industry gave the novel a glowing review, sales took off. Requisition. A demand for goods, usually made by an authority. During the war, the government made a requisition of supplies. Rescind. To take back, repeal. The company rescinded its offer of employment after discovering that Jane's resume was full of lies. Reservoir. Reserves, large supply. Igor the Indomitable had quite a reservoir of strength and could lift 10 tons, even after running 700 miles, jumping over 3 mountains, and swimming across an ocean. A body of water used for storing water. After graduation, the more rebellious members of the senior class jumped into the town reservoir used for drinking water. Resilient. Able to recover from misfortune, able to withstand adversity. The resilient ball player quickly recovered from his wrist injury. Resolute. Firm, determined. With a resolute glint in her eye, Catherine announced that she was set on going to college in New York City even though she was a little frightened of tall buildings. Resolve. To find a solution. Sarah and Emma resolved their differences and shook hands. To firmly decide. Lady Macbeth resolved to whip her husband into shape. Respite. A break, rest. Justin left the pub to gain a brief respite from the smoke and noise. Resplendent. Shiny, glowing. The partygoers were resplendent in diamonds and fancy dress. Restitution. Restoration to the rightful owner. Many people feel that descendants of slaves should receive restitution for the sufferings of their ancestors. Restive. Resistant, stubborn, impatient. The restive audience pelted the band with mud and yelled nasty comments. Retract. Withdraw. As the media worked itself into a frenzy, the publicist hurriedly retracted his client's sexist statement. Revel. To enjoy intensely. Theodore reveled in his new status as big man on campus. Revere. To esteem, show deference, venerate. The doctor saved countless lives with his combination of expertise and kindness and became universally revered. Revoke. To take back. After missing the curfew set by the court for 8 nights in a row, Marcel's freedom of movement was revoked. Rhapsodize. To engage in excessive enthusiasm. The critic rhapsodized about the movie, calling it an instant classic. Ribald. Coarsely, crudely humorous. While some giggled at the ribald joke involving a parson's daughter, most sighed and rolled their eyes. Rife. Abundant. Surprisingly, the famous novelist's writing was rife with spelling errors. Ruminate. To contemplate, reflect. Terry liked to ruminate while sitting on the banks of the river, staring pensively into the water. Ruse. A trick. Oliver concocted an elaborate ruse for sneaking out of the house to meet his girlfriend while simultaneously giving his mother the impression that he was asleep in bed.